to look at a sutta, which is like an early text, called the Meghiya Sutta, for two reasons. One, because we studied it already on Tuesday, so it's kind of hopefully still in my memory. And the other, because it's really important, and it kind of gives you a flavor, the sutta gives you a flavor of Buddhism in a way that sometimes it's hard to get from other sources somehow. Yeah, it has a kind of particular, it's telling us something particular. And I have to say, I really enjoyed researching the Meghiya Sutta. It's one of these suttas that if you've been around for a while, you would have heard, at least in this tradition, many times in different places. But I really enjoyed going a bit deeper with it. And our own teacher and founder, there's a seminar that he did on the Meghiya Sutta, which I found really interesting. So I'll probably bring some of those points out as well. So it's called the Meghiya Sutta. Sutta means something like thread. It's a text. Yeah, it's from the Pali canon. Pali is probably about as close as we will get to the Buddha's actual language and communication. Yeah, and Meghiya is the name of, well, probably for a short time, one of the Buddha's attendants. Yeah, so the Buddha had attendants, like I don't know how you'd say it, like a PA maybe, someone that's with him all the time. Yeah, and Meghiya was one of these people. And so this is a story about Meghiya, basically, and his adventure. So it seems like the Buddha and Meghiya were alone together. Yeah, they were alone together for a certain period. The Buddha had sometimes spent periods of time, completely alone, or he spent periods of time with large numbers of his disciples. But it seems there was just those two together, Meghiya and the Buddha. And, well, I think, Sangharakshita makes the point that, Meghiya goes on his alms round, yeah, which basically means he goes on a begging round. Yeah, he goes to the local village and asks people for food. That was the culture at the time. Yeah, if you'd renounced the world, so to speak, you'd gone into the forest and you were there to just practice meditation, wander. There was a culture where if there was a bit of food left and someone knocked on your door, you'd plop a bit of food in their bowl and they'd go around all the houses, and then by the end you'd end up with a bowl of disgusting kind of squodge stuff, yogurt, bits of goat, so who knows what was in there, yeah? And that would be your dinner, your one meal for the day, yeah? And Bhante said, Sangharakshita said, well, maybe Meghiya goes for the Buddha as well. Yeah, he's got a big bowl and he gets food for both of them. So Meghiya goes off. He goes to the village, the Jantu village, wherever that is. And he does his arms round. He comes back to the Buddha. And on his way back to the Buddha, he notices a beautiful mango grove. Yeah, apparently, I mean, some of you, I'm sure, know what a mango grove is. But it's apparently the best place to be, yeah? It's like, especially if it's super hot, there's kind of like apparently very thick green foliage, leaves, very cool. There's also mangoes which grow, yeah, so it smells nice and it's a nice environment. So Meghiya sees this mango grove and thinks, this is the perfect place for me to go and meditate and attain enlightenment, yeah, on his way back to the Buddha, this is. Which is quite interesting. So Meghiya is obviously serious about practice and meditation. I guess we see things dependent on our needs and our wants. You know, some of us might see a mango grove and think, oh, this is a nice place to sleep, yeah, or something else. I don't know. But he sees it as a place to go and meditate. So he goes back to the Buddha and he says, if the Exalted One, the Buddha, gives me leave, I would go to that mango grove to strive for concentration. Yeah, there's different translations, to exert myself, to meditate. And it says, at these words, the Exalted One, the Buddha, said, Venerable Meghiya, I am alone until some other monk arrives. Which is quite interesting, isn't it? So the Buddha's not outright saying don't go, but he's just saying, can you wait, because I'm alone, until another monk arrives, yeah? Begs the question, why would the Buddha need an assistant? In a way, the Buddha doesn't need an assistant. The Buddha's free, he's liberated, yeah? But maybe, I mean, many people wanted to see the Buddha, yeah? There was like things to arrange on that front, so Meghiya had taken the responsibility to look after the Sangha, essentially, to look after people that wanted to see the Buddha. Maybe more importantly, the Buddha's assistant, especially his last assistant, Ananda, was also kind of there to remember, or try and remember what the Buddha said, because there was nothing written down. It was a oral tradition. So maybe it's important. If you have a Buddha, it's probably quite good to know what the Buddha said, and that's Meghiya's job as well. So, then a second time, the Venerable Meghiya said to the Exalted One, "Sir, the Exalted One has nothing further to be done. There is nothing more to add to what he has done. There is more to be added to what I have done. If the Exalted One gives me leave, I would go to the mango grove to strive for concentration." Then a second time, the Exalted One, the Buddha replied, "Wait a little, Meghiya. I am alone until some other monk arrives." Yeah. But Meghiya doesn't leave it there. He says it again. Yeah, he says for a third time, he says, "I want to go to the mango grove. You're fine. I'm not fine. I want to be enlightened. Please let me go." And the Buddha says, "Well, when you speak of striving, what can I say? Do what you think it is time for, Meghiya." Yeah. What can you do? He's going to go anyway. So, which is quite interesting, isn't it? There's nothing, the Buddha doesn't force him to stay. And actually, Meghiya's made his mind up anyway. Yeah, there's nothing you can do. If someone's made their mind up, there's no point trying to do something about that. They're doing what they're doing, right? And in a way, Bhante Sangharakshita makes it, he says it's interesting, Meghiya's point is logical, yeah? It's logical and rational, but it's missed something, yeah? So it makes sense. Meghiya wants to be enlightened. He says, "Oh, the Buddha's already enlightened, it's all right for you, but what about me? Yeah, think of what my needs. I want to go and get enlightened." So logically, it makes sense, doesn't it? Sangharakshita says, "On the surface of it, it appears not only logical, but quite reasonable, but only on the assumption of a particular conception of Buddhahood itself." Yeah. He says Meghiya overlooks the fact that Buddhahood involves what we call compassion, and that therefore the Buddha, if he is a Buddha, cannot be indifferent to Meghiya's needs. Yeah, so Meghiya obviously doesn't know who he's looking at in a way when he's looking at the Buddha. He's kind of trying to remind the Buddha of something that I'm pretty sure the Buddha knows, you know, and trying to, I wouldn't say manipulate him, but push him a bit. And he seems to think that the Buddha needs reminding, yeah? And he goes on to say, clearly he doesn't think that, Meghiya doesn't think that spending time with the Buddha is helping him on the path to enlightenment. Which is extraordinary, yeah? If we had the Buddha next to us, we'd probably just be like, I just hang around here with the Buddha, rub off, let the good vibes rub off, and, you know, it makes sense, right? But not for Meghiya. And in a way, maybe it relates to some point that we've got, because in a way, Meghiya, in this Q&A, in this seminar that I'm reading from here and there, someone says, do you think there's any significance in the fact that he wants to go off to meditate? Do you think he's got an idea of seeing spiritual life only in terms of meditation? And Sangharakshita says it could be that. I mean, no doubt meditation occupies a very important place in the spiritual life. I might even say that it occupies a central place. But perhaps Meghiya has got too fixed an idea about meditation. And he goes and say, I mean, meditation means being in a certain mental state. It doesn't mean necessarily going and sitting in a mango grove. It means being in a certain mental state, and perhaps he hasn't sufficiently considered the possibility that he may be more likely to be experiencing something like that mental state in the Buddha's company than on his own, supposedly meditating. Yeah. So in a way, Meghiya is just a bit immature. Yeah, he hasn't quite. I say this with all due humbleness, because I'll give a few personal examples in a minute. But he's just not really. He's not really he's a bit naive in a way. Yeah, he's basically saying, it's a bit cheeky, isn't it? He's like saying, well, you're enlightened, what about me? Yeah, as if he just doesn't know who he's looking at. And again, maybe Meghiya is seeing enlightenment or the path to enlightenment as just meditation, yeah? Having an experience for himself, having some big experience, and then that's what enlightenment's all about. So I think it's uncontroversial to say that Meghiya is wiser than, the Buddha is wiser than Meghiya, yeah? But Meghiya is not really listening. So he goes off, and the Buddha says, do what you think it is time for, yeah? And I don't know if it's that easy to pick up humor in the Pali Canon, not for me, but apparently, like, Lalateratna always makes the point, he says, he thinks it's a joke, but maybe that says more about Lalateratna's personality. Like, he brings light to it, so he's like, the Buddha's like, well, when you speak of striving, what can I say, Meghiya? You know, go and, so apparently that's funny, but it's kind of funny. Maybe it's funny. So anyway, Meghiya goes off, yeah? He goes off to the mango grove. We can just imagine that's a lovely place. You know, he's probably got a good opinion of himself, Meghiya. He's like, yeah, I'm the Buddha's assistant. I mean, to be fair, to be asked to be the Buddha's assistant, you must have something going for you, yeah? So he's probably like, yeah, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to be Meghiya of the mango grove, you know, like, get big, I'm going to do this. It's a disaster, yeah? He just gets tons of, like, sexual thoughts, hateful thoughts, harmful thoughts, and it doesn't work. Yeah, his big moment to go into the mango grove after kind of saying to the Buddha, yeah, let me... So he comes back to the Buddha afterwards, after this kind of not a good solitary retreat, basically. Yeah, he's not had a good time at all. And he comes back and he says something amazing. He says, oh Lord, well, he doesn't say it like that, but he says, oh Lord, how incredible, how amazing. Yeah, so he's stunned. He's completely, he can't believe it. I've gone forth out of faith from, you could say, the home life to homelessness, but I am still harassed by these three kinds of bad, unskillful thoughts: sensual, malicious, and cruel thoughts. Incredible, isn't it? So Meghiya is genuinely shocked. Yeah, he thought he was going to go and rock up on the solitary and just like attain enlightenment, and he just can't understand what's happened. You know, he's like, it's been the complete opposite experience. He's been humbled. Yeah. So yeah, you could say in a way there's a certain level of naivety. Yeah. You could say there's also a not understanding what leads to what. He doesn't quite understand conditions, what conditions actually lead to someone being able to meditate at depth and really sustain that, and he hasn't quite clocked that, yeah. Before I move on, I just wanted to say Sangharakshita makes an interesting point about, probably from his own experience, but people asking for permission to do things, yeah. So Meghiya asks the Buddha to leave, initially to go to that mango grove in the first place, but he's going to go anyway. So it's like, why did he ask? And in a way, so Sangharakshita says, it means you're just seeking confirmation, yeah? You're not really asking. You're not really open to the possibility of your request not being met. You've assumed it will be met. You just want the other person's approval. But why should you want their approval? Yeah? If you've made your mind up to do something, why not go ahead and do it? Why do you want to ask someone's approval so that you have to go through the motions, so to speak, and asking for their permission? And he says, in a way, one aspect is like, you don't want to take responsibility for what you're about to do. Yeah, if it's your teacher and they say, yeah, you should do it, then if it goes wrong, at least you have someone to blame. Yeah. And also, he says, in a way, you can see them as an authority figure. Yeah, you can put it on them essentially. And also, it's maybe like you just want to fit into the group still. It's like you want to do something, but you might be worried that you're going to get some group disapproval, especially if someone hears from the Buddha said no, and you did it anyway. That's not going to go down well in a group situation, isn't it? So, Sangharakshita makes the point in a way, like just how we look at this whole business of asking for permission, like or Meghiya asking for permission to leave when he's already made his mind up. Group dynamics. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that. What I did want to go into was just this whole business of not realizing the conditions we're in, or or how that can work. So I was thinking about in terms of my own solitary retreats. I've been lucky enough to know in some respect that one needs friends and one needs good conditions, yeah. But it's quite interesting, like, I've lived in with loads of good people, and they influence you, don't they? They kind of perfume your mind, they have an effect on you. And then I found myself going on solitary retreat, and I don't have those people around, I don't have all this, I'm just me, yeah. And it can be quite difficult sometimes, you know, you're kind of like, in a way you get a sense of where you are when you're on solitary retreat, it's quite clear. You're kind of like, ooh, okay. For good and for bad, yeah. So it's like you get a clear. Once all the other conditions are gone, it's just you and your quote unquote level, so to speak, or where you're at. And I have to say, I think solitary retreats for me personally have been a way that I've navigated life over the past however many years, because you kind of go on solitary and you kind of know what you need to do next. It's kind of undeniable. In order to go deeper, because sometimes I'll get on solitary retreat and I just can't meditate properly. I'm quite superficial. It's like bouncing and I'm like, why is this? You know, I'm a card-carrying Buddhist. You know, I've been doing this for however long. I should be able to just rock up, sit down, meditate, dhyanas, depth, you know, read suttas all day, you know, proper Buddhist. And there's something there which is like staring me in the face, and you kind of, oh, I need to do this now. And it's helped as a process over the years to kind of, well, just to know what to do next in order to be able to be more present and have some depth and content and let things unfold. Because I think in the beginning when I was going to solitary, I was just trying to use willpower, you know, which on my first solitary, I thought, oh, I'm going to be a proper Buddhist. I'm going to meditate for 8 or 9 hours a day. Boom, and I did it. I'd geared in for like 4 days, got an extraordinary migraine, and just lay on the floor for 3 days afterwards. And I was like, okay, that didn't work. That's like severe willpower. So in a way, if you're going to unfold, there'll be things that you will need to deal with outside of meditation, outside of a solitary retreat. The shape of your life, essentially, yeah? So you know what to do next. And maybe this is what happens to Meghiya. It's hard to say because, well, we'll get onto what the Buddha says to him. But maybe that experience affected him. He was like, oh, you know, I thought I was just going to go in, but then all this other stuff came up. I had all these thoughts, and you're kind of like, oh, right, why is this happening? Yeah. So I think solitary retreats can be really helpful in terms of just having a sense of what you need to do next to become a more substantial person and to become happier, I think, actually. Yeah, it becomes clear. It's like, there's no one to talk to, there's no one to blame. You just stay with your life, and you're like, what needs to happen next? Yeah. So the other thing I was thinking about in relation to this was, I think sometimes when you're practicing the Dharma, especially in a context like this, it can be quite difficult to see how you've changed over time. Yeah, you can become more, I don't know, you can feel kind of a bit bulletproof sometimes in a good way. So I was thinking about 15 years ago, if you know me, you've heard this story a million times, but if you don't, then it's going to be new. So anyway, about 15 years ago, I was in West London and I was doing loads of stuff. I was like running an outreach class. So, you know, you travel for like, I don't know, 40 minutes somewhere way further. You set up a class. It's exciting. And then people come along and you interact and you feel like, oh, you're doing something good. Yeah, you're doing something good for people. So I was doing that. I was helping make tea, doing things like this in these sort of classes. I was living in a community. I was living above 2 amazing people, Jnananda and Paramananda, these 2. I was in a community with them. So it was just like the atmosphere of my life had kind of come to a certain temperature where I felt like I didn't even realize I'd changed. I just felt good most of the time. I just felt good. I was around good people, doing good things. I just felt good. And I say that because maybe it's a bit like Meghiya. You can imagine if you were the Buddha all the time, if you're with someone who's literally fearless, yeah, and just pure, really kind all the time, and knows how things are, and you're with them, you're going to feel good about it. It's going to feel good. You're going to start feeling like that's you. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm the Buddha. I'm like, I just got to meditate a bit, and And so I was a bit like that. I think what happens when you practice the Dharma in a good way is you become a bit bulletproof. You can become, if you really intensively practice, you can start to feel, and it's not just you fantasizing. In Buddhism they call it punya, or merit. Yeah, you have a kind of merit, and sometimes in these pictures of the Buddha, these paintings, you get like an aura around the Buddha's head, which is said to be like the wisdom aura or something, yeah. And the one around the body is basically merit, is punya, is like your actions, yeah. So that's in that image is communicating something, that there's a kind of, by your consistency and energy and of effort, you just start to feel all right, you know. You're like with people, strangers, and if you're not careful, you can start to just think that's just the new you, yeah. And that's what I thought. So I was like, I think it's time for me to go on another adventure. Yeah. So I have a cousin in Copenhagen, and he knew loads of people, like music people. And I was like, you know what? I can do both. I can do this. I can probably set up a Buddhist center in Copenhagen, and at the same time, I can do an amazing music career with my cousin. Yeah. So let's do it. So. Yeah, so I turned up and I felt great for about 3 months. And I felt like, because I knew my cousin was involved in organized crime as well. He's not anymore, thankfully, but he's involved in all these, yeah, he went to jail a lot. He was with a lot of bad people. And like, I knew those sort of people. I grew up with those sort of people. And so I felt like it was a revisiting of a life that I just felt good now. Like I could be with these people. They're like proper gangsters, not like pretend ones, you know. And I was just like, I felt good with them. I was talking to them and like, you know, talking about their life and even getting them into meditation, you know, like some of them were like, oh yeah, you know, guys from jail, I think people that have been in prison, they like religion, you know, it's like a big thing. So I was like, yeah, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna convert all my cousin's friends. They're all like mobsters, but they're gonna be like, it's gonna be a really interesting Sangha there, you know, like, that was my plan. So Meghiya is naive, but I was really naive. So, you know, like some of them were like Palestinians, some of them were like big Danish dude. And I was like, all right, this is going to be a great Sangha, exciting. And yeah, and it was going great. And I was bulletproof. That's how I felt. And I was genuinely interested in them. And then it just got a bit, I had no one else there with me. Yeah, I was meditating, interestingly still, out of desperation in the end. But I was meditating and listening to loads of Dharma talks, but there was like a lot of guns and like machine gun type things. And I just started to feel really unsafe at a certain point. I was just like, you know, like my cousin, I shouldn't incriminate him. Allegedly, my cousin pulled out like this AK-47 out of a sports bag, yeah, that he got from some guy from Afghanistan. And like I held it, and you know, I don't know if you've ever held something that's killed someone, but it's got a weird, it's like it's like a voodoo thing. You just hold it and you're like, It made me feel like, you know, like, I can imagine it's what like when you're in an abattoir, you know, and you kill cows for a living, that gun thing. It's a bit like that. And I was just like, oh God, let me put this away. And I started to feel really unsafe, yeah. And my merit was gradually shrinking. My little aura was like getting smaller. And I think the nail in the coffin was he had a friend called Frank Goodfellas, not a very original name, and he was from Thailand, or he's Thailand origin, right? And he was like really small. He was like 5. Anyway, he was like up to here, yeah. He was really dangerous. He was like. Mobsters would use him to collect money from other mobsters. So he's like a private detective for gangsters, yeah? So he would like, because he can't go to the police, so you have to go to someone, you know, because it's all bad. So I was with my cousin in his Jeep, and I met Frank, and these 2 thugs with him that were about 6 foot, like massive, yeah, like, I don't know how you say 183, like huge guys. And they just found somebody and got money out of him. Yeah. So basically, essentially, they've been torturing this guy. Yeah. And this big guy, like one of the big ones, put his head through the car, and I was talking to him, and I felt like, I mean, I love animals, but I felt like this is a crocodile. Like, and you're literally talking to a crocodile. You know, someone who's just like a crocodile. Just, I was like, what's going on? What's happened to my life? Like, just dead inside. And I was like, and then I started changing. I began to feel much more reactive, scared. And I was like, I have to get out of this place. Yeah, my little adventure in the mango grove just went sideways. So I was just like, so I went back to the UK and I went back to the Buddhist. And to be fair, Janananda, who was like one of my spiritual friends, like my teacher, when I was leaving, he was a bit like, you're doing what? Yeah, he was a little bit, okay. You know, when you love someone, you're just like, all right, you do you. I love you anyway. But I came back and it was interesting. Like I said it before, but I was in the office. Like we have an office here somewhere, I think it's downstairs now, but we have an office here. And I came back and I got a picture, my passport picture at that time is horrible. I look like, you know, like not good. And anyway, I sat in the office with him and there's a older member called Bodhi Leela, and he wanted a pint of milk, and he said, oh, can you buy a pint of milk? And she said, yeah. And just the way they talked to each other, I was just like, I was almost in tears, like, this is amazing. Like, it was so much like, if you step out of this environment into this terrible environment and you come back here, you realize how amazing this is, you know, just like the kind of care people take. So I can understand Meghiya, you know, it's like, you're around all these great people and you think it's you all of a sudden and that you're just gonna, and unfortunately, you can't be told. Yeah, it's been a few times where people are like, yeah, I'm off to do this thing now. And you feel like saying to them, I've been through this, bro. It's like, there's a reason why you feel good right now. You can't tell someone that because they feel good. Yeah, they're like, what's the problem? So you have to learn yourself. So in a way, maybe Meghiya needed to know for himself, you know? He's just like, it didn't work so well. So he comes back to the Buddha and basically tells the Buddha, and to be fair to Meghiya, he's completely honest. He's not you can't lie to the Buddha. Imagine the Buddha's there and you're just like, yeah, and you start the Buddha knows. So it's not going to work, is it? So he's just honest with the Buddha, and it's amazing. The Buddha doesn't tell him off. He doesn't say, you're an idiot, I told you. You know, he could have done. He could have said, you're totally, you left, you're completely irresponsible. Yeah, you had a job to do. You'd gone off by yourself in this stupid thing, which I told you not to do. And now you're back with your tail between your legs. What's this now, yeah? He doesn't do any of that. He just says, when the heart's release is immature, there's 5 things that lead to its maturing, yeah? Which is a lovely phrase, the heart's release. Which maybe you could say is another way of talking about enlightenment, but it has more of a poetry to it, doesn't it? The heart's release, yeah? It's like it gives a sense of what maybe enlightenment is like, yeah? Because it's important to know the Buddha used different ways of communicating, not just method and like the intellect. He used images as well. So, you know, he said like the enlightenment is like you're in a desert and you're really thirsty and you find some pure water, yeah? There's a relief, yeah? You can imagine that. Or like, he said it's like carrying a burden on your back, yeah? And then you take this burden off. It's a relief, isn't it? And, or like being released from prison. You've been locked in this dark prison and you're out, you're free. And it's a bit, when you have glimpses in your own experience, it's a bit like that, isn't it? It's like, we were saying in a study group the other day that sometimes I find it a bit, I used to find it a bit difficult going on retreat. Because, especially meditation retreat, because kind of once you start getting into it, your whole body just at a certain point can just relax. You're just like, yeah, everything's gone. And you just like, I can't believe how tense I was. I didn't even know. I was just like, even if you haven't been on retreat for a while, like 6 months, you're just going, and this is your new, probably like now, you're just on your normal state. And then you have a period where it's almost like you get your senses back, yeah? Your heart's back in order, you know what your values are, you're with good people, and your body relaxes, and you're like, oh my God, Was I really that tense before? Because we don't know. Yeah. So anyway, it relates to this heart's release. Yeah. The Buddha says when the heart's release is immature, there's 5 things that lead to it maturing, which is quite interesting as well, because Meghiya, like us, is kind of immature. Yeah. Yeah. So he goes into these 5 things, and the first one is friendship. Yeah, which in a way is, you can understand from the whole flavor of this sutta. The first one is friendship, spiritual friendship, kalyana mitra, people that, it's important to have some sense of what spiritual friendship might be, yeah? Without making it too, I don't know, just weird, spiritual friendship, yeah? But actual spiritual friendship. What's the difference between spiritual friendship and regular friendship? Well, I guess spiritual friendship is a friendship that is really based on you genuinely wanting the other person to grow, and not just to like each other, or not just to, you can have friends with you that you collude with, like, oh, this person, rare, they're horrible, aren't they, blah, 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 and you can go, yeah. Or you can have certain qualities of your own that they might pick up. Like, I've had friends of mine say to me things that other friends just won't, because they don't want to rock the boat or something. They will say to you, do you know what, you're doing this thing, and actually it's not great, there's a kind of, you're holding each other, you might say, to a higher standard, not in a kind of booky way, like, oh, you broke number 6, not that, just like a general flavor of shared values, yeah? So you have shared values, and you will help each other, whatever it takes, to kind of grow into those values, yeah? Not just to be on each other's side. Of course, there's loyalty and solidarity, but that loyalty can also express itself in taking risks, maybe, and going through things together, yeah? Like, I think sometimes, like, it's a slightly sideways thing, but I've had friends of mine that have been in the army and, like, been in wars together, and combat at least, and done, but their bond of friendship is very strong, yeah? It's not just like a real strong, I used to be jealous of that, and I think it's because you go through a life and death situation together, it will bond you, it will, and your friendship will be deep. And I think unless you have something deep to bond you as friends, it's going to be a bit superficial by default, yeah? You haven't really been through those things together. And I think the good thing about, for example, the Dharma, like, I've been through so many things with so many friends of mine, yeah, that you've got a history together. You've been through some really, actually quite difficult things. That means something, especially over time, over decades perhaps, yeah? So the Buddha's basically saying the first condition is spiritual friendship, yeah? That's number one. And I would say, and he says, it's a bit of a, you've probably heard it before, but the Buddha also said spiritual friendship is the whole of the spiritual life, yeah? And when we hear that, it can be a bit like, oh, well, for some of us, oh, great, well, if I don't have any spiritual friends, what am I supposed to do about this, yeah? In a way, it's quite simple. I've heard people put it in a really simple way. If you're into the Dharma and you like this, you just turn up. You just keep turning up, yeah? You keep seeing people, you keep being in the same environment. I was here the other day, I was very tired, and I wanted to have a nap in the basement. And there's someone here called Juliet, and she was here, and we just bumped into each other, and we had a really nice conversation for like half an hour, like just in the same space, in the same environment. It's like the same community. So in a way, you just keep turning up, yeah? But maybe that's not enough. So the Buddha goes on to number 2, which is the second thing that leads to maturing is basically, you could say, your ethical behavior, yeah? Getting on top of your behavior, the precepts we call it, yeah? You can't really be, and as well, it's impossible to be friends with somebody, as I was like, from my little adventure, for example, in Copenhagen, it's impossible to be friends with somebody who has a different set of like ethical values than you. It's just not possible, yeah? If somebody thinks it's okay to physically hurt people or mentally hurt people, how are you gonna be friends with them, yeah? Or it's okay to steal, yeah, it's okay, no one saw. Or it's okay to like slag people off, or to be very horrible in your speech. Things like this, yeah? It's like you need a shared set of values. So anyway, friendship is number 1. Taking your ethics seriously, it basically means that you take your actions seriously, that they actually affect the world, yeah? And will change the world around you, which sometimes we don't feel. We get a bit impotent, or at least speaking for myself, we can be about, oh, what's the point? So that the third thing is speech, yeah, which is interesting. We need to get on top of our speech. We all know that. And the Buddha's basically saying that's number 3, yeah. So you have friends, you get you're really take your behavior and your ethics. You kind of clean your act up, yeah. And also you try and speak well, yeah. You try and speak well. You try and speak kindly, truthfully. Try and bring people together with your speech, and try and make it helpful, yeah. So that's it. And then number 4, energy, yeah. So you need to cultivate energy, maybe especially in meditation. You know, like you're basically putting energy into cultivating positive mental states, and you're putting energy into getting rid of negative mental states. To put it very in that term, yeah. So you're using energy skillfully to mature yourself, yeah. And then number 5 is where you could say insight. You need to develop insight, which, I don't know, in a way it's quite simple, isn't it? You're really trying to get into your bones that things are impermanent, yeah? Which in a sense will stop you clinging. You're trying to basically cultivate a way of seeing the world, that leads to you probably being able to sit and meditate, actually, you know, some sense of like, because if you know everything is impermanent, like, I don't mean like, we've all heard this now in our yogi tea thing, everything impermanent, I'll have a cup of tea, out in one ear and out the other, yeah, we're going to hear this today, it's probably not going to mean anything to us. But the good thing about practicing the Dharma is like, you circle the same material over decades, yeah, and it's interesting that recently this whole impermanence thing, thankfully, has been a bit more, it's doing something to me at the moment. It's like, has a flavor of liberation about it. Like, oh, I'm going to die. Everyone's going to die. Everything's impermanent. My negative mental states are impermanent. There's a freedom to it. It's all, things are growing, things are coming into existence, things are coming out. So that's what the Buddha's saying to Meghiya. He's saying, like, you need these 5 things, yeah? But he makes the point, which maybe I'll wrap up with, he makes the point that friendship in a way holds all these 5 things, spiritual friendship, yeah? If you're around those kind of people, it will rub off on you. Yeah, and you will, I mean, I know I was saying when you leave, you kind of, it's less easy, but it does change you. And I think I've been shaped by the people around me and thankfully been intelligent enough or aware enough to know that the people that I'm with will essentially, you become them, don't you? What's that saying? You are your 5 best friends or something? There's some...
You are what you eat.
You are what you eat. Yeah, you are what you eat. Yeah, you are what you eat, basically. Anyway. Yeah, so, yeah. Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because sometimes you have to let go of certain friends, and that can be quite difficult. Like, I think after that episode in Copenhagen, I basically had no friends, which is shocking. I was in my early 30s, which most people would assume you've got all your besties and you've got your friends. And I was like, I got no friends, which was shocking. Yeah, now I've got lots of good friends, but then I had no friends. And it had to be like that, because if you don't have good friends, then you need to be alone until you find some good friends. Yeah, maybe I'll leave it there. Yeah.